Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. This is take 3. We're having fun this morning. This is out of the Journal of Psychopharmacology. And it's fascinating. Really, really. This is interesting stuff. Survey of entity encounter experiences occasioned by inhaled. Well, this is DMT. This is the spirit molecule. This has been the subject of a lot of talk at different times. And here you see phenomenology and interpretation and enduring effects. Experiences of having an encounter with a seemingly autonomous entity or entities are sometimes reported after inhaling DMT. So the study characterized the subjective phenomena, interpretation, and persisting changes that people attribute to it. And this is fascinating. This is not a tiny study. 2,561 individuals. The mean age was 32 years old, 77% male. Completed an online survey about their single most memorable entity encounter after taking DMT. Respondents reported the primary senses involved in the encounter were visual and extrasensory. Other words, telepathic. The most common descriptive labels for the entity were being guide, spirit, alien, and helper. About 41% of respondents reported fear during the encounter. The most prominent emotions, both in the respondent and attributed to the entity, were love, kindness, and joy. Most respondents endorsed that the entity had the attributes of being conscious, intelligent, and benevolent, existing in some real but different dimension of reality and continuing to exist after the encounter. Respondents endorsed receiving a message, 69%, or a prediction of the future, 19%, from the experience. More than half of those who identified as atheists before the experience no longer identified as atheists afterwards. The experiences were rated as among the most meaningful, spiritual, and psychologically insightful lifetime experiences, with persisting positive changes in life satisfaction, purpose, and meaning attributed to the experiences. So in conclusion, DMT occasioned entity encounter experiences may have many similarities to non-drug entity encounters experienced, such as those described in religious, alien abduction, and near-death contexts. Aspects of the experience and its interpretation produce profound and enduring ontological changes in worldview. In other words, absolutely powerful. And so DMT occurs naturally in a variety of animal and plant species, and it can produce intense subjective effects, including vivid mental imagery, perceptual and time distortions, changes in thought patterns, and heightened emotional states. So it's pretty wild what it can do. And this is part, it's not the whole, but it's part of our shamanistic traditions. And, being a walker between the worlds, so to speak, of which both, I think, Cindy and I think we qualify as that from our experiences during this life, and perhaps other lifetimes as well. Truly, once you have these experiences, you're changed. You no longer need faith, quote unquote, because you've attained gnosis, which is knowing. Big difference when you've had these experiences. Now, we could read about people's experiences, such as, take the book of Revelations, for instance, and, seeing that, or other biblical texts, or even non-biblical texts from other traditions, where people have had this type of experience, where you get a glimpse or a taste of the true oneness of things and the underlying matrix behind all things. And then you can never go back to the same way of being. You're always and forever changed.
Well, you are, because you have that knowing, you have that experience, and this brings a sort of a solidity to how you move forward in your life. You're definitely changed.
And I feel strongly that DMT could be activated through meditation and mantras and other things like Qigong as well. I do feel that like mantras, especially when you're vibrating, really, really vibrating them, they have this effect of stimulating the pineal gland and stimulating the production of DMT. And, it's amazing what can be done when that is activated. And so, this is part of the next step in healing, which is like going back to the past in so many ways, recognizing that we are multidimensional beings. We are operating on more than one level at one time. We're just not completely aware of it usually. Most of us are not. But when you get a glimpse of this, your perception is just so changed. When you have seen The Matrix, and I've shared with you guys that I've had experiences where I've actually seen The Matrix, and actually one time just broke down laughing hysterically because it just hit me as if, that sense of knowing that ultimately that is more real than this, and that we are kind of in here in a game, so to speak. We're here in some ways challenging ourselves to overcome certain things and to see what we are truly made of.
It's definitely can be challenging. And, sometimes people run into circumstances where they're like, no, I didn't choose this. This cannot be. And it's all about working through it, whether you chose something or not. Ultimately, it's our ability to work through things.
It is. And we have help. There are beings all around us. And once your senses are activated, you can sense them and see them. Like last night, we had a very active night, personally. And yet I feel so rested and so good, so strong today and so healthy, and very, very positive. And, most definitely, there's altered states of brainwaves, and we didn't do any like psychedelics or anything like that. This is just part of our natural experience now through our meditation and our mantras and our practice, our spiritual practice, which to us is an everyday, all-day thing. And then you start to, your consciousness just changes. And there's beings around us all the time. And there are benevolent ones. Of course, we've focused somewhat in some videos talking about some of the negative ones that are influencing the people on this planet, especially the leadership of the planet. And, conversely, I really do believe there's way more positive ones than there are negative ones. And as you go up higher, you find more and more positive ones. And they are out there to help us, and they're right there, and all you have to do is ask, and so it's all a matter of going within, and you'll find that you've never really ever been alone. Never. I mean, they're always around you, and, there are beings that we've had past lives with, and at sometimes perhaps, you are helping from the other side while somebody else is incarnating, and vice versa. And, it's just a natural way that things are. But we can definitely ask for their assistance, and we could contact them directly. And this is something that's been in the West, hidden on purpose, because it would give us a greater sense of the real reality that is around us, and not this, illusion that they keep us locked into.
Definitely. You can really go within and just by your thought alone and use your imagination and imagine yourself going back in time and fixing a certain issue or a certain problem that you had. And that's a sense of soul retrieval.
Which is very, very powerful. So you understand the interconnectedness of all things. And one of the things that, you recognize, or you might recognize, might experience, is you might get glimpses of your past lives. In which case, then you understand that you go on. The soul goes on, the spirit goes on, and death is just but a doorway. It's just as one door shuts, another door opens, and you step through, and perhaps have a much clearer picture of what the true reality is. So shamans were walkers between the worlds, And there's a number of ways that you could help people to heal. As Cindy was saying with soul retrieval, sometimes we literally lose a piece of ourselves. And, this is something that many people experience. And it could be through many different types of trauma. It could have been a car accident. It could have been losing someone near and dear. It could have been some sort of abuse. It could have been many different things. And, this is part of coming back to wholeness. And so, a shaman, recognized the whole. It was very holistic practice working on, mind, body, and spirit. And, things that affect us in other dimensions can leak on down into this dimension and vice versa as well.
They can. And, part of the soul retrieval is, going back into the world and going back and looking at the situation, remedying the situation, and then coming back out.
So, there are modern day shamans and, recognizing a lot of things, like we get messages in our dreams. And they could be very vivid and very real. And when we're dreaming, we're on basically the astral plane. We're in 4D, if you want to look at this as 3D. And we are rising up in density right now. So we are heading into a waking 4D experience is where we are going. Consciousness is ultimately the most real thing there is. This body is just a vehicle for consciousness. And I find it very, very interesting that almost all the traditions of the world, besides the fundamentalist traditions, recognize that. They recognize some core things. The fact that we always go on, that we are eternal, that there's different quote-unquote dimensions to our being, that we've lived before and that we will live again. And, reincarnation is something that was part of the early Jewish tradition, and as time went on, there were Christians that believed in reincarnation as well. But we know, Gnosticism, as well as anything that was not given to us by the Catholic Church, once we had the Council of Nicaea and the ensuing councils, which were organized by Constantine the Great, the Roman Emperor, in order to keep his empire together and consolidate his power by controlling the religion as well as the everyday lives of his people. If the people knew that if anything happened to them, they weren't going to go and spend, eternity in hell, they were simply going to go and live again, that takes a lot of the power away. And that's why they wiped it out from the biblical tradition. They took away references to reincarnation, because if you get somebody to think that you, being the church, can control where they're going after death, then that becomes super powerful. You control them in this life and in the next, and that's exactly what they've done. And whereas the reality is they don't, and we are free beings, and we will go ahead and live again. And there are many different dimensions to our consciousness.
There are many, 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 and you can get in touch with that through meditation, mantras, things like that. Kind of centering yourself, being still, do what it takes for you. And it kind of grows that energy or that emotion or momentum inside of you to go out and heal yourself.
So, shamans walk between the worlds to retrieve medicine, excuse me, guys, wisdom and guidance, which will benefit their community by forging working relationships with plants, spirits, and ancestors. Remedies are offered to bring relief to the living. And so this is something anybody can do. Now, a lot of people will be very impatient and want to take a fast track. One of the things that's so big right now is ayahuasca, with people, actually going to other countries to have this experience, or doing things like this magic mushrooms, for instance, as well, which will bring on the DMT and give you those effects. However, you can also do this naturally if you have patience, and you can do mantras and meditation and then have a very, very controlled experience as well.
You can, and there's been a lot of, what's exciting to me is that there has been a lot of studies on how this can cure PTSD, depression, all kinds of stuff. And that's, to me, that's excellent, because it's not that I don't have patience. I do have the patience, but there's, when you have PTSD and some kind of trauma, something happens, it changes the brain physically, and this can help change it back.
Exactly. And so as you see it, this is showing you DMT, which is known as the spirit molecule. And it's been prepared by various cultures for ritual purposes. And because it is something that would enable somebody to walk between the worlds and get information and understand, the structure of reality as we know it. And, as I've shared with you, it was, I've had some very interesting consciousness experiences. And, some of them were, the vast majority were completely natural, and then some there was a little bit of a helper. And, it's the same experience. It really is. It's just on a different level. And there is a structure to this reality. And there are so many forms of consciousness around us, and we have so much help, which the love will come through loud and clear. And again, it's all about our personal vibration. It's all about where we are resonating at. So, you don't want to be resonating in fear. Of course, we recognize what's happening on this planet and how we've been kept on lockdown on purpose, and how, so many ways and things that perhaps could be beneficial are hidden from us, including, alternative forms of healing. And, it's a very, very sad thing, especially when, there are so many substances that's perfectly fine for you to go get at your local pharmacy that really do cause long-term damage and cause a lot of other problems.
They do, even though I'm not a doctor and I can't really comment on that. It's just been my experience that the medications through the pharmacies personally have caused me far more harm than they did good, and any plant medicine has seemed to benefit me and help me catapult forward to a healthier position.
And of course, if you look at the legal status, it's prohibited. And the reason it's prohibited, when we look at so many other things that will cause, cancer and all sorts of other issues and are legal, is simply because this will open up a mind to a new sense of reality. This can be something that brings on gnosis, as we were talking about the Gnostic. And gnosis is a knowing. And once you have that knowing, it can't be undone. And so, people could, tell you, anything they want. They could tell you, you have to do this, do that, or you're going to hell forever. And you just basically laugh because it's not true. Because you've experienced, it's a deep sense. And so fascinating that we look at this scientific study, which shows that. And so, this particular molecule is a potent, we could look at it as almost a messenger of the gods in so many ways, bringing something that could bring real wisdom and knowledge to us, about how the world, how the universe, how this multiverse really works. And bring also a sense of peace, as you see from this particular study. So not recommending everybody go out and, go down to Peru and have, an ayahuasca encounter. But I would strongly recommend that everybody start a meditative practice and perhaps look into doing some mantras that resonate with you, because the feeling that you get from that after you've been doing it for a while is absolute bliss. And it can so take a bad day or, a rough, challenging day and set it back on the right track.
It definitely can. It can sort of stop things in its tracks and reposition you so you can move forward in a better way.
So guys, thank you so much for your support. We love you guys. Thank you for your support on Ko-Fi and also on Patreon and supporting both channels. We can't do it without you. May you guys be blessed with abundant love and also abundant gnosis. And In these times, we could definitely use that inner knowing so that we have that security when the roller coaster of life and what's going to happen next comes up. It doesn't set us off into a negative path because we just have this knowing.
We do. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.